Good morning and welcome to the Ask Weldon Show, episode 203, how to get a peak performance state for your first LAN event. That is the last question of the day, and we have some other amazing questions, two other questions to lead into that. The first one about golf. So if you're curious about what my opinion is about alternative sports being all that stuff that is not esport, we're going to dig into that there. And then talking about sleep and esport and how to stay focused when you have to train in the middle of the night. I have some opinions about that. Mostly they're going to be opinions because I don't have a lot of science about that. So we'll see how I can figure out the answer to that question live on the show today. No updates or announcements really compared to yesterday's show. I don't have anything new to add, but do remember to get your questions in for the show if you want to call in your own audio question. Anchor.fm/Weldon Green. Anchor.fm/Weldon Green. Download the app, hit the plus message button, raise the phone to your ear. It automatically starts. You don't even have to push a button. It's this really cool podcasting app. It's not a sponsor or anything. I just use it for hosting my podcast, and it comes with an app where you can call in your questions. So you just pick it up, and it goes ding, and starts listening to you. And then I don't know what they do. They don't code your voice, right? But they run it through some sort of amazing algorithm that makes you sound incredible. It makes you sound like you're on the radio. It makes you sound like you have a $150 microphone instead of a phone held up to your ear. And so you should try it just to see what your voice would sound like on my show. And I have to remind everybody, okay, this is a problem that I face as well. If you are a very focused, driven individual, and you are striving and watching the show for insight and knowledge, most likely your mindset is that you're like, okay, I know everything Weldon's going to say. Might be true, right? I know he's going to answer this question. Also might be true. And I know that I'm just not doing it because I'm generally lazy and I'm going to do it in the future and I'm getting there. And so there's no point for me to call in and ask the question because what is the point? I know what he's going to say, and I know that I just need to do that, and I'm just not doing it today or this week, so obviously I'm not getting the results, so that's that. And I have this problem because I have these call-in shows I listen to, and I'm like, I know what he would say if I called him with this question, and I know that it would tell me to do this thing, and I know that I'm just not doing it kind of because I'm not doing it. And that's my problem, and I got to figure that out, so I don't want to waste my time and his time. I don't want to waste his time by calling in, Let me posit to you an argument that you should call in with your question anyway if you think it's a good question, especially if you can phrase it in a way that hasn't been heard exactly on the show today or yet today. Not today. If it hasn't been heard on the show as of yet, or with a context that is rather new and interesting from your life, because the show is not just for you, right? And the answer is not just the answer for you. It's also the answer for everybody else who's listening. And it can be very valuable. So if you can suffer the indignity of being told something that you already know, you're like, I know what he's going to say, and you're like, yep, that's what he said. If you can suffer the indignity of kind of going through that phase of kind of knowing what's going on and suffering for the good of the audience, then you can bring in your question anyway and enlighten everybody else. Think of it like a sacrifice for the greater good, if you think about it that way. And thank you very much for pointing that out in my Discord, the person who brought that up. I'd now forget their name. But I immediately recognied the feeling when they described that because I do the same thing. And unfortunately, and this is no shade, it's going to sound so bad. This is going to sound really, really bad, okay? No shade to every amazing caller I've had on the show. But if the people who have the most insight and know the most about what it is that I'm going to say, don't call into the show, that cuts out a large swath of people who actually might have the best questions, right? It might be just the people who don't know what I'm going to say and literally can't figure it out who are calling in, right? And they're asking the same questions over and over again. And I know that sounds really bad now that I say it out loud, but just think about it statistically, right? Think of it in terms of statistics. Think of the people who would call into the show and the people who wouldn't call into the show. And understand that if you don't contribute to the best of by calling in even when you already know and figured out the answer, then you're going to allow statistically, you're going to allow the quality of the show to drop that much more. without your voice. So, be Superman. Don't be Batman. Where the heck did that come from? Oh, I know. Yesterday I was watching the Lego Batman movie, and I remember that like Superman is supposed to be like the justice. Okay, on with the show, everybody. Let's jump into the very first question of the day. All right, this question is from Patrick, and they ask about their golf game, and I unfortunately, again, because I was so excited to answer all of the questions from Twitch chat, which, by the way, if you want to catch out this show live, from 6:30, we start live, even though the show starts at 7. I answer questions for half an hour there. I was so excited to answer questions, twitch.tv/mindgamesweldon with the chat, that I once again didn't prep the question cards. So we're just going to listen to audio, and I'm going to stare at a blank card in the center of the screen and cheer you on as you attempt to read my invisible writing. Get out your heat source. I wrote it in lemon juice. Let's go.
Hey Weldon, this summer I want to improve in golf. I've been playing for a few years now and didn't take it very seriously, but this summer I want to see how good I can get. I'm not looking to go pro or anything, just improve. What type of schedule should I lay out in order to improve, but also not burn out in the 3 months that I have? Thank you.
All right. Thank you for that question. So, a couple elements here that are important. 1, 3-month training schedule. Wants to know a schedule. Doesn't want to burn out. Wants to improve. Okay, so first of all, Patrick, I can't answer this very well because I don't know what your burnout rate is, right? And this is dependent a lot on your ambition and your motivation. So if you look at a person, for example, who wants to be the greatest in the world, and they are able to push themselves to a commensurate level, they're gonna have less levels of burnout than the average person who's just wants to kind of be good. And if they attempted the training schedule of the person who wants to be the best, they would burn out after like one day. If you tried to match Phelps's training schedule for when he was training for the Beijing Games, you would burn out after a week. And he did it for 4 years in a row without taking a day off. So that is dependent completely on what your level of ambition is, and I don't know what that is. So let's talk about other things that I can answer that don't have to do with that little key piece of knowledge. So you want a training schedule, 3 months, and you want to improve. So a part of any of improvement in any game is to essentially have a set of things that you need to work on. So if you don't already know what the flaws with your game are, then you need to get a coach, especially if you're working on a condensed time schedule like 3 months. You need to get insight. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to pay money or that you need an in-person coach, right? You can go and set your phone up, get one of these little hang on. Come here. Get one of these little puppies with a little phone clip like come here. Like this. Clips your phone in it, right? Mounts on there. Bring it to the golf range, set it up, and film your stroke and cut out 4 or 5 of them and go to Reddit, go to the internet, find some people who are amazing golfers and trying to start to build their golf coaching brand, but just don't quite have the students yet, and they want to offer insight. Or you can go to forums, where there might just be people lurking around who have big mouths and just want to show off their knowledge. Great. Okay. You can get feedback. The great thing about feedback on the internet is you don't have to listen to it. You can just say, thanks so much. And you can ignore it, or you can pick out the golden stuff where oh my gosh, that's it. That's what's missing. Okay, so start collecting information from third parties about what you need to work on and improve. And then start adding in extra stuff outside of golf to the level of your capabilities and your desire. So start with the gym. Okay, the very first thing you should do is you should be working on, your upper body and your shoulder and your lumbar and your rotational capabilities, everything that you can think of that's related to golf and golf strength. Even obscure things like lat 3 exercises where you're essentially inclining yourself forward and you're lifting your arm up and then rotating it with an open hand, like with a 4 kilo weight to start with. You probably want to do basically every single shoulder rotation exercise that you can, both internal and external rotation, and with weights, and make sure you're, of course, supporting your arm with all of these, so that you're not actually like stressing the muscle in terms of an eccentric hold, but you're just activating it in terms of the pull or the push. So anyway, get in the weight room and do strength building. That's the number one thing that I would add on. If you can do that, if you can commit yourself to 4 days a week or even 6 days a week of strength building, remember, you're doing strength building here, not hypertrophy. So you want to do a strength-based routine, which means we're talking about low reps with as little of the controlled release as possible. You're not trying to hurt the muscle. You're not trying to get delayed onset muscle syndrome. You're not trying to do anything damaging to the muscle. You basically just want to do the like explosive part, and then drop. If you think about deadlift's the perfect example of this. If you're a deadlifter who wants mass and size and bodybuilding, you deadlift up and you put the bar down on the ground. If you're a runner who's doing deadlifts in order to get more explosive power of your foot pounding into the ground, then you pull the bar up and you let it go and you just let it fall. You're not doing the down motion, because that is where the damage to the what are they called? My gosh, I'm blanking. That's where the damage to the muscle fiber actually occurs. I can't believe I forgot the name of the protein chain in there that is connected. But anyway, we'll get to that. Maybe we won't get to that. I'm going to distract you so that we don't get back to that. You want to do strength-based exercises. If you have the capability of getting a trainer in the gym, great. You can probably go to golf forums and be like, what are the best exercises for strength building for golf? You can get routines, whatever. Just like do it to the commensurate level of your income, whatever that is. Everything for free or pay for more convenience. If you can get the fitness thing in there and you can do it, like, the first thing you should try is 3 times a week. If you can do that, up it to 4 or 5 times a week. And then you want to add in the nutritional aspect, okay? Because golf is an endurance game of focus, and you want to be able to control that focus at the level of the molecule and the micronutrient that you consume. So you're looking at meal prep here. You're looking at learning what it is that you put in your body that gives you sustained energy, what you need to bring with you on the course, things like Quest bars, because they're low carbohydrate, but they give you lots of, but they have enough to kick you off. I don't know, maybe you need carbohydrates, maybe you want that energy and that focus, whatever it is. Maybe you want runtime. I don't have my runtime bag with me. But anyway, runtime has isomaltulose, which is like a slow burning carbohydrate gives you a very stable blood sugar. So you got to experiment with this stuff, both in terms of meal and diet regulation, right? And what you bring for energy. But I would say mostly you're looking at the cognitive function of the diet in your life. You want to make sure that this diet gives you the requisite proteins, obviously, to recover from all this gym stuff you're doing, and the branched chain amino acids you need for that, proteins. But mostly you're looking at things like, okay, cutting out fried foods because those are going to interfere with your focus, cutting out massive amounts of bread and sugar because those are going to like spike your insulin, and then if you don't have enough, and then it's going to make you sleepy or like lower your focus, unless you do something to burn a bunch of energy right there. So I would start experimenting with your diet. Okay, the third thing that you want to layer up is your mental game. So here you want to work on, if you're able to keep up those two things without burning out, then you add the meditation. And actually, this can actually help with burning out on the other stuff, because meditation is actually an active recovery tool. So there's actually a headband that was invented for golfers to help them meditate correctly and to help them kind of control, like see what's happening when they're meditating. These are basically bands like a Muse headband that scan your brainwaves and then give you a readout. And so they're looking at the theta, gamma, beta waves, and they're saying like, okay, this is where your wavelength is, and this is where it should be when it's meditating, supposedly, according to our models. And so you're doing it right or you're doing it wrong, and then you get an autocorrect and autocorrection in the form of like a visual stimuli or in the form of an audio stimuli, and then it tells you, to fix it. You don't need that stuff. You can get it if you like. Again, the thing about money, to the extent of your money that you have, but you can do it for free with a place like Tara Brock's website, which has a bunch of cues for free. You can use the Mac program, my training program. You can use headspace.com, which has a number of 10 free exercises before you have to pay, etc. Anyway, there's a number of different mindfulness meditation trainings for focus that are going to increase and improve your golf game, and those are the ones you should check out. That's the trifecta. That's it. Layer on the fitness, layer on the nutrition decisions, layer on the mental training outside of the game, and this all comes secondary to getting stuff on the course that's going. So just play as much as you possibly can. First comes golf and getting a coach and increasing the quantity of your training and the quality of your training. And once you feel like you're at the limit there, once you feel like if I increase my training more, the quality will get worse. You don't want that. Or if I increase my training, or like if I increase my training more, I just literally will be on the course all day, and I don't want to do that. I want to balance, right? If you want that balance, then add on the next layer of the gym, and then add on the nutrition, and then add on the mental training. And I do it in that order because you get mental training from everything else. Like you get mental training when you're training in golf, you get it when you're training in the gym, you get it when you're conditioning yourself to eat, right? So and eating and so therefore it's kind of like the bottom of the pyramid, even though it's the most important thing that you can do, because everything that you do is mental. Everything you do is mental, so you're training it all the time, right? And so you want to layer on the important stuff first, which is the gym and the nutrition. These are the things that are going to impact your life on top of your game. And yeah, of course, I'm a huge proponent of meditation, and I push it on everybody. But I'm not going to lie and say like that's the first thing you should do because it's going to make everything better. I think if you can go to the gym 6 days a week, that your life's going to get way better than if you meditate every day. Because, like I said, the gym can be your meditation. Okay, and then you're also strong and fit too. Let's go to the second question, guys. That was way more than I thought I ever had to say about golf, and I didn't think I was going to be able to offer any insight because I don't know about where your burnout level is. But pay attention to that and draw back before you burn out. Question number 2.
Hi, Weldon. As
Hi.
a European player for a North American team, I have training hours pushing until 6 in the morning. How can I manage to give 100% of myself at a time I'm supposed to be sleeping? Thanks.
Tenny Kron, thank you so much for this question. I imagine that this is going to be an issue for people who live in areas like EU and Korea or Brazil and are playing into different time zones in order to play on competitive teams, but really teams that have a lot of money somewhere else. Let's not talk about competitive teams. Let's talk about North American teams in League of Legends, which are going to pay you more, and you're going to be better than the native players in the region, and so they want you. All right, so I'm not going to tell you not to do it because these are opportunities that people can sacrifice for and really want to unlock in their life. It's not a good decision, obviously, because it's bad for your health. It'd be better to play on a team that's in your time zone. But like I said, your opportunities are your opportunities, and you need to take them. You're going to have to get sleep. You're going to have to flip your schedule. If you're playing through the night and that is your job and that's what you want to do, this is more than a hobby, then you're going to have to flip your schedule. You have to become one of those factory workers. So there's a number of things that you must do to increase the quality of your sleep at this time and your awareness and your awakeness at this time. You have to cut out light when you're sleeping. You must get one of these. Minimum one of these, maybe 2, I don't know. And you have to get blackout curtains. Maybe buy a couple spares just in case. But if you're going to fool your body at all into thinking it's nighttime, you got to cut out as much ambient light that's going to be hitting your retina as possible, through your eyelids, whatever. It's the only way that you're going to get enough sleep that is like powerful enough for you to train. And then I would say you want to not go to sleep after training. I would say that you want to this is making a lot of assumptions that I don't know about your life, but in an ideal situation, you would go to bed at like 4 p.m. and you'd wake up 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 at midnight, and you would train for 6 hours, okay? And then you'd have the rest of your day, and you'd go to bed at 4 p.m. or 3 p.m. I think it's much better to train that way than it is to try to stay up late and then sleep afterwards. If your goal is this League of Legends pro life, okay, then that's gonna be the structure that you want to do. And yes, you're gonna sacrifice, dinner with your family and hang out with your friends and watching movies in the evening with your girlfriend or whatever. But just choose. Like, what do you want? Do you want health and focus, or do you want and a chance to go pro, or to play on this team or to get paid, or I don't know what your situation is, or do you want dinner with your family and hang out with your girlfriend in the evening and watching Netflix with your friends? Then don't do the other thing, or don't expect to have good focus and attention when you're doing it. But sleep your night and then wake up and focus and play. Okay. Go to bed earlier and earlier. You have to get, if you're training and you're living your life also and you're working, you have to get 8 hours. So you have to get to bed pretty soon. I mean, like, we're talking like 3, 4 p.m. if you're going to be able to get up in time for a 6-hour training block at midnight. Figure out that schedule. Figure out what that schedule looks like. If you have complete freedom throughout the day, then you're set, right? Then you just go to bed at like noon, and you wake up at 8 p.m. and you flip your days around completely. And you still have like, a couple hours in the morning, like from 8 to noon to figure it out. Okay, so what else should you do? Remember that when you're trying to go to bed, you got to get really good at putting yourself to sleep in the middle of the day. So you want to maybe 30 minutes before your bedtime in the day, right? You want to brush your teeth and like close all the curtains and get it dark and dim and turn off the light on your phone. You want to say, make sure your computer has flux on it, stuff like that. Just to get everything dim and so you can transition more quickly into deep sleep or REM sleep. And then during the night, you want to get these full spectrum bulbs, right? You want to have light everywhere. You want to have as much light as possible. You do not want to play in a dark space. You got to get light. I have these huge soft lamps for my filming, and I use them during the day when I'm working. I actually just turn it on and it shoots light into my eyes and it keeps me alert. I live in Finland where it can be dark 20 hours of the day and we only get the sunlight for 2 hours. It comes up at noon and goes down at 2. So I turn this on and it shoots into my face and it's like I have a sun here all the time and it keeps me alert during the day. So that's a hack that you should definitely consider. These soft lamps that you use for filming, they're full spectrum sunlight kind of bulbs, and I think you can get them for $20 on Amazon, even $10 if you're buying one. So consider that. I am going to hesitate to recommend caffeine because I don't want you to have to rely on caffeine. If you're just relying on caffeine only to stay alert, then it could come back to bite you because you're actually using it in place of sleep and light to stay alert. But you have to consider the usage of caffeine if you're going to be staying up at night or getting up early in the morning to stream in North America time like I do, right? So I go to bed at 8 p.m. and I get up at 4 and I stream in North American time. And I use caffeine judiciously in the later parts of the stages of the day in order to stay awake. You have to make sure that you don't take it within 6 hours of your bedtime. So like, let's say you're going to bed at noon and your last scrim block is happening at 6 a.m. So you can take caffeine because it has a 6-hour half-life. But let's say like afterwards you're doing some stuff and it's 8 a.m. and you're like, oh, I'm really tired. I want a cup of coffee. Don't drink it because in 4 hours you need to be going to sleep and the caffeine's going to last at least 6 before it even halfway passes out your system. So you have to be very careful about taking it later in the days when you have this kind of flipped schedule, and make sure that you're only taking it right in the middle of your day so that you get the attention and the energy for the second scrim block. And make sure that if you ever have a day you don't need it, that you absolutely do not take it. Opt or lean towards not using caffeine and only use it when it's essential. Okay, but use it as a way to stay awake, and just forget energy drinks completely. Like, I think there might be a place for energy drinks in traditional sport, But if you're talking about esport and you're talking about in the middle of the freaking night, and you're talking about such a situation that you have, I would say energy drinks are like the worst thing you can do. I would drink only black coffee, and I would make sure that you square away your nutrition nicely. Like I don't want you to be in the middle of the night like eating just, you're like, oh, it's nighttime, so whatever, and you just eat cereal all night long or something. Like figure out a way to do breakfast, lunch, and dinner that is effective. And if you need to do a meal replacement thing like Runtime or Soylent or whatever, that's a good option for you for the middle of the training meal. Okay. Those are my suggestions. Sleep first. Don't try to sleep after. It won't work. You'll just be tired. Last question. Before we get into the last question of the day, I want to recommend my Mac program. I already put on my headphones, so this is going to be a short ad. But check it out. mindgames.gg/MAC. I get amazing testimonials from the people that are going through this. There's over 1,500 people have purchased this program and have used it to train themselves in performance and in life. And it's an online video training program. So it's just like a video course online. You log in. There's all the videos. You complete one. You go to the next day. Sometimes there's a little bit of homework down below. And every single day is a lecture, like a TED Talk, basically, like a mini TED Talk over some slides. And then a mindfulness training session that starts off. They start off at 5 minutes with a centering exercise. And by the end of the 50th day, 47th day, I think is the last day, they're, the full 15 minutes of like intense focus training, mindfulness, the kind that you would use for golf, for example. And you should use the code AskWeldon to get a $5 discount, AskWeldon. And that is to track where you come from. So I'm not saying like this coupon is going to go away anytime soon. It's going to be there. You don't have to, it's not like a rush thing, rush delivery. mindgames.gg/MAC, Mindfulness Acceptance Commitment Program. It's the program I use with the pros. And I have had pros talk to me and tell me that they used my program to become a pro. So it works for that. It also works if you're trying to quit gaming as well, strangely enough. A lot of the fun comments I get are from people who say, thanks for this. I managed to stop playing video games completely, and now I'm doing something good with my life. Not that video games aren't good. Like, that's what I'm saying, is it depends on where your orientation lies. Okay, final question.
Hi, Weldon.
Hi.
I'm a CSGO player, and soon I will be attending my first LAN event. I do not have a lot of experience playing at a high level, so going into the event, I want to make sure I perform my best. So what advice do you have to be able to put myself in a peak performance state? Because I have been able to unintentionally create these states in the past, but when I try to consciously recreate these states, I fail normally. So what can I do better to make sure I am playing at my best? Thanks.
Okay. Oops. I'm trying to find this name. The gentleman who discovered flow state. I can never remember how to say it. So I got to see it. Mihail Csikszentmihalyi. Maybe I can show my browser here. No, I can't. Okay. Anyway, there's a sports psychology scientist who was like the first person to term the word flow state. And basically what we're talking about here and what this question is about is, how do I get that flow state? How do I get that peak performance state? It's a state where you know what you need to do and it's possible and difficult, and your sense of time disappears and you forget yourself and you feel like you are a part of the craft that you are doing. You feel like your identity, your ego, your id melts away, and your body and your mind become one with the activity that you're doing, and you are just in the zone. Okay, this is flow state. This is what he wants. This is what performers want. It's very addictive, and it's actually very powerful. The brain is doing incredible learning and operating at a very, very high level of a person's actual capability for output during flow state. However, it's not choosable. You can't choose to be in this flow state, at least yet. We don't know how to trigger it. And And I mean trigger it chemically, right? Excuse me. But we do know some of the precursors for it. So we do know that some of the precursors for flow state involve things like having a challenge that like is you're just up to the challenge, right? You know you can do it if you try really hard. That you have very focused attention that is exclusive of everything else. That you have a really clear-cut thing that you're trying to accomplish. Like you're trying to get to the top of this wall, or you're trying to like survive surfing this big wave, or you're trying to like win this game at all costs. So very clear goal. Ambiguousness is cut out. We know that you get flow state in training most of all when you have immediate feedback of whether you're succeeding or failing. So this is why there's a lot of training materials now being invented for doctors to help them get into flow state where it gives them feedback, like, because like the problem with diagnosis is you make a diagnosis and then you don't know if you were right or wrong until the lab results come back in, days later, or until the person dies, years later, and you find out what was wrong or whatever. So they're making these diagnosis tools that are basically flashcards where it's like, okay, here's the x-ray. Okay. And you answer, and then, oh, here's the result. And it's a way to train where you can get into flow and your brain can start recognizing these patterns and start building competence. And when there's high consequences, so it's really hard to fool the brain and say like, oh, I want to be. This is a challenge. This is something that's going to like really push me. And you know that if you lose this game, this solo queue game, you're just going to queue up into another one. And your brain's like, yeah, this game is not important. Trust me. You're going to play 7 more of me today. And so how can you tell me that this game is important? You can't. The brain is not fooled by that. So it's harder to get into flow state when the consequences are not dire, right? All of these things are somewhat controllable and somewhat uncontrollable, and even if you put them all in a row and you get your ducks in a line, it's not necessarily the case that you're going to get into flow state. So I like to train people to perform at their peak performance level independent of flow state. And if flow state happens, yay. And if it doesn't, you got to play anyway, because you need to understand that career athletes need to show up to every single game and perform at a very high level, regardless of whether they feel good or not. One of my favorite quotes that I heard, and this I read in a newspaper article, so it wasn't a video, it was a newspaper article, was about Michael Jordan, the basketball player, and he was having a very, very bad personal week. I think that something like one of his nephews had just been shot or something. I don't remember what the circumstances were, but it was a very bad week personally. And he went out and he played a stellar game, like an unbelievable game. And a journalist asked him, like, how was it you were able to, like, all this crap is going on in your personal life and it's really bad. How is it that you were able to focus? How is it you were able to be in the zone so much? I think they use that term, in the zone on the court today. And Jordan said, I wasn't in the zone. I just played like I was. And this betrays the secret of high performance in athletics, which is you don't know what kind of mental state the performer is in when they're playing, okay? They could be in the zone, or they could be really busting their chops and really trying hard to play super well, and it could be the most effortful and difficult 60 minutes or 90 minutes or 2 hours or 3 hours of their life. And they could be sweating in order to keep the focus necessary to play at their peak, but they pull it off. You only observe the objective performance. And so this concept has actually been studied. What is the difference, the variance between objective performance and perception of performance? And what we've discovered is that the difference in objective performance between like somebody who perceives themselves in flow state, so they perceive themselves to be at the peak of their human potential, their own personal human potential, and somebody who perceives themselves to be like nowhere close to that and is putting in loads of effort just to be able to pick up the ball and run with it, and like tons of concentration. The difference in perception of how that game goes is massive. But the objective difference, if you have a person who's trained, to like perform well, the objective difference between their performance is very minimal. They're actually very close to each other. Okay. One of them is peak and one of them is like not quite peak, but it's close enough that you can appear to be an astounding athlete regardless. So what are the components of this trained high performance state? Well, first of all, you got to accept that you're not going to go to this LAN and perform at your peak. You're going to go to this LAN and perform at your average. Okay? And your average is your peak. If you think of it in terms of a bell curve, right? When you think of a bell curve, it goes like this and up and down. And 98% of your performances are going to be within that center zone. That is your peak. But really what that is your average. Okay? So first you got to be accepting that like most likely, and I'm talking like one standard deviation of likeliness is that you're going to be in your peak, which is actually in your dead center average of performance. That's where you're going to be. The thing you don't want to do is choke. You don't want to drop off the bottom end. And it would be wonderful if you went off the top end, right? If you were like better than you could normally do. So one of the best things that you can do is control your choking. And for that, obviously you want to make sure that you have the ability to face fear and make the decision anyway, to have the guts to pull the trigger and make the play, and to have a bunch of reset switches, whether it's like rational self-talk reset switch or like going around and walking or drinking water, every single time you die or whatever, to have a reset switch in order to kind of like mentally square yourself back up so that you can approach the tee and swing the club again. I'm using golf analogies now. I wonder why. So I would say like pay attention to the things that you do that help you get over challenges and pressure in training, and get ready for that pressure at the LAN. Okay, and amp up the pressure of your training. Put stringent, ridiculous, overly ambitious goals on yourself in training, and ramp up the pressure on yourself mentally, because I promise you that there's no way to escape the pressure of live performance. There's no way to escape the pressure of live performance. It will come on you, and it will induce stress, and it will induce a cortisol response, and you will have the stage hormones and cocktail of testosterone and adrenaline and noradrenaline and cortisol flowing through your body. There's nothing you can do about that. So the best thing you can do is get used to coping with it. That's actually the difference between experienced performers and inexperienced performers. It's not that they don't feel the pressure and they don't have the same chemicals in their body. It is that they cope with those very effectively. Okay, so you need to start doing that in your training. Put yourself in high pressure situations. Go do exhibition matches. Have observers come to your match. Get one of your friends who's like a pro to watch. Get one of your parents who's not a pro to watch. Whatever it is that you can do, like stream it live, I don't know, to get an audience so you can feel that stage fright and you can cope with it and play aggressive anyway. That's how you want to prepare. Okay. Get your toolkit ready. Increase the intensity of your pressure, and then you want to work on your focus. You want to work on focusing on the present. So here's what you're going to notice. Every flaw that you make in terms of choking or tilting or letting the pressure get to you is going to come because your mind is either focusing too much on the past or too much on the future. You're either like rehashing that mistake over and over and over again, or you're thinking like, oh my gosh, that mistake is going to cost us the trophy. That's the moment when I lost us everything. And you're just thinking about it over and over and over and over. And what you need to do is drag your face and your head and everything into the present moment. Let it go for now. Let it go and focus on what your fingers and hands are doing and what your opponents are doing and trying to win this moment. How do you win the game now? Not how would you win the game if you hadn't made that mistake. How do you win the game now? Not what is Reddit going to say about this mistake. How do you win the game now? And then the future, right? Where you're like, oh, sweet, we've got this. We've got it. Like, it's, I don't know, it's like 14-6, right, rounds, and we're totally about to crush it. No, that's thinking about the future. Focus on the present. Let the future come. Focus on your performance in the here and now, and do not project, do not expect. Just allow your competence to carry you to the level of where you're going to be in the tournament, and don't look hopefully at the future and don't look pessimistically at the future. Don't even look at the future. Just focus on the play that you're doing and the round that you're doing. And obviously, of course, there's a little bit of strategy where you need to think like, okay, well, do we eco now or whatever? That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about where your mind's attention lies, whether it's on performance or whether it's on incidental expenses. And those incidental expenses eat up your attention, and then it's gone, and you start having errors. These errors are injuries, okay? They're injuries. If you were playing a traditional sport, you would have rolled your ankle. But instead, in CSGO, or whatever you're playing, you get shot. You run around a corner too soon, or you don't have the right gun up. Okay, those are my recommendations, man, is to accept the level of your average performance and be ready for that. Start to build up your toolkit so you don't go off the bottom end of choking. Start to learn to control and regulate your attention to bring it back to the present and get it out of the gutter, whether it's the past or the future, and increase as much pressure as you can on yourself in training periodically, right? So don't just increase the pressure a lot and expect that to work, because it's a stage, right? You're faking the pressure increase. And so your brain's going to figure it out so fast. Increase the pressure in one way. Cope and learn from that situation, right? Analyze it, reflect on it, think about it, journal about it, whatever. Then come up with another strategy. Increase the pressure that way. It'll work one game for your brain, or 1 minute, or a whole day even. And then your brain will figure it out and be like, okay, this isn't real. I don't feel any pressure right now, and it'll go back down. And then you journal about it, reflect on it, think about it, okay, what were the mistakes I made? How did I handle them? What did I tell myself? What mantra am I going to use at the event, etc.? Then come up with another strategy to fake it again. That's the best thing that you can do to prepare for this LAN if you have enough time in your training. Yeah, good luck. That's the show for you today, everybody. Make sure you come to twitch.tv/MyGamesWeldon. Check out the rest of the show. Call in your question. Remember what I said earlier in the show about being the statistical the statistical average upbringer that brings up the quality of the show with your amazing insight. Do it. Even if you already know the answer, call it in. And I will see you tomorrow.